Have you ever thought that no matter your country, your language, or your culture, we all end up in the same place? Yes, on the throne. I'm not talking about crowns, nor castles. I'm talking about that intimate corner, inevitable, where we all arrive after a good barbecue, a pizza, or a little too much ice cream. Because eating is joy, it is sharing, it is celebrating. But what no one usually says is that, sooner or later, everything that goes in has to come out. And that is when the story changes. If eating is public and festive, evacuating is private and silent. At least, in theory. The curious thing is that this need, so hidden and so rarely mentioned, ended up shaping inventions, customs, and even entire civilizations. And what we take for granted today, a white toilet shining with running water, was for thousands of years a luxury, an experiment, or directly an outdoor adventure. So let me take you along. We are going to go through the unlikely history of an object that, without exaggerating, makes us all equal as human beings. An object that may seem vulgar, but reminds us that, whether we know it or not, we are all kings. Imagine for a moment that we are in prehistory. No houses, no streets, no toilets. Just you, nature, and an inescapable need. What would you do? Would you hide behind a bush? Would you use a smooth stone, a bunch of leaves, sand, or maybe a little river water? Now think carefully. You are crouching, and suddenly you hear a noise in the undergrowth. It could be a rabbit or a saber-toothed tiger. Even the bravest would feel something tighten, right? It was not easy to be outdoors, with your loincloth half fallen, dealing with necessity, and with the risk of ending up as someone else's meal in the least glorious moment of your life. That was the bathroom of our ancestors, improvised, quick, and above all outdoors. The curious thing is that, although it may seem like something lost in time, this method never disappeared. Even today, in the 21st century, isolated communities like the Sentinelese in India or some tribes in the Amazon still solve their needs in the same way. In the jungle, on the beach, with leaves, stones, or water. Tell me the truth. When you go camping, with your tent, with your friends or your partner, and there is no bathroom nearby, do not you end up doing the same thing humans have done since the beginning? Only with one key difference. At that moment, you realize you did not bring paper. And then, the question is inevitable. What would you clean yourself with? After the bushes and the leaves came the first cities. And of course, when you pile thousands of people into the same place, you cannot keep doing what was done in prehistory. Hygiene starts to become an urban problem. In the Indus Valley, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, more than 4,000 years ago, already had covered sewers. And even a great bath built with bricks, with stairs, drainage, and everything. A hydraulic marvel that today would be the pride of any urban spa. The curious thing is that these people mysteriously disappeared. Some say droughts, others invasions, but there is always the mischievous one who believes a visitor arrived with a biblical diarrhea, and they never recovered. In Mesopotamia, palaces and temples had drainage, but in the streets the people kept throwing their waste wherever it fell. It is no coincidence that in the Epic of Gilgamesh the gods were always angry. Anyone would lose patience if every walk turned into a swamp of human gifts. In Egypt, pharaohs had limestone seats, or wooden stools with containers underneath. A kind of authentic throne, though not as comfortable as it sounds. And here comes a historical temptation. Since the Egyptians invented papyrus, could it also have served as toilet paper? Possible, but not recommended. It must have scratched more than reading Ramsay's tax list. Ancient China left us two gems. The first, an archaeological find in Yueyang, about 2,400 years ago. A toilet with piping and manual flushing that carried waste to an outside pit. Basically, a toilet in full antiquity. The second, the famous bamboo sticks wrapped in cloth, used as cleaners. And beware, it was not just a theory. In excavations along the Silk Road, remains of these sticks were found, with microscopic evidence of intestinal parasites. Let us say that, besides silk and spices, other little things no one had ordered were also exported. The interesting thing is that, while in some places there were sewers, stone thrones, or even toilets with pipes, the majority of the world's population kept doing the same as in prehistory, looking for a bush, a pit, or the nearby river. Civilization advanced, but the bathroom remained a luxury for the few. If there were two civilizations that took the body very seriously, they were Greece and Rome. The Greeks, more interested in Socrates' debates and in Olympic races, did not leave great advances in collective bathrooms like the Romans did. Hygiene existed, of course, public baths with water, simple latrines, basic drainage, but the focus was more on ritual bathing than on practical toilets. For them, water purified both body and spirit. Although, there is no record that after running the marathon someone asked, "Where is the toilet?" The probable answer was, "Behind that wall," or "Look for a stream." In contrast, the Romans took the matter to the extreme. If the Greeks invented the gymnasium, the Romans invented the social bathroom. And when I say social, I mean literally. They sat in long rows of stone side by side with water running underneath to carry away the waste. Imagine the scene. 20 citizens, robes lifted, talking about politics and gossip from the forum, while everyone did their business. And if you thought that was the most picturesque, here comes the famous sponge on a stick. The Roman toilet paper, a natural sponge mounted on a wooden stick that was rinsed in a bucket with water or vinegar. So far so good, except for one detail: it was shared. Yes, shared. The same utensil passed from hand to hand. Hygiene? It was not unusual for Roman latrines to have murals or inscriptions with ironic phrases, something like today's graffiti in bar bathrooms. Proof that, even as time passes, scatological humor is part of our species. The truth is that Rome reached a sophistication in sewers and aqueducts that took centuries to recover after the fall of the empire. The curious thing is that while the Roman aristocracy enjoyed marble and mosaic bathrooms, in the countryside peasants carried on as always, with their pit, their bush, their daily improvisation. In short, while some made history in marble, others kept fertilizing the fields the old-fashioned way. With the fall of Rome, everything advanced in hygiene went straight down the drain. Literally. The Middle Ages brought narrow cities, crowded houses, and the custom of emptying chamber pots out the window. So much so that in London and Paris it was almost a sport to shout, "Water is coming," before throwing everything into the street. Chivalry was invented here. The man walked on the side of the wall to take the rain. And I am not referring to the one falling from the sky. In castles, nobles had their own toilets, seats that led directly to the moat. So the moat not only stopped invaders, it also collected the worst of nobility. Kings were not spared from the throne either. Literally, George II had a toilet built to his royal seat, and it is said that Louis XIV received visitors while being occupied. One imagines the aroma of Versailles and understands why people invented perfumes. Meanwhile, in the north, the Vikings had their own ways. We do not have clear records of how their bathrooms were, but surely they were nothing to brag about. Maybe wooden latrines, or maybe straight to the forest. What is certain is that, centuries later, Shakespeare wrote the most famous phrase about it: "Something smells rotten in Denmark," and you did not need to be Hamlet to notice. After centuries of smelly streets and moats perfumed with the worst of nobility, came the Industrial Revolution. And with it an urgent need to clean up the cities, because it did not matter how much coal you burned, nor how many factories you opened. If London still smelled like a giant latrine, progress was in question. It was in the Victorian era when urban hygiene became a priority. The first modern sewer systems appeared. Water networks were expanded and, most importantly, the invention that would forever change private life was perfected: the toilet with siphon and water flush. Thomas Crapper, yes, the surname still raises laughs, did not invent it, but popularized it in England. His name became so linked to the toilet that in the Anglo world the word crap is still used as a synonym for, well, what we all know. Ironies of history. By selling so many toilets, he ended up immortalized in language. Victorian bathrooms began to include what we take for granted today: white ceramic toilets, wash basins, bathtubs, an exclusive room, locked, destined for intimacy. What had once been public now became private, almost sacred. Of course, not everything was immediate. While palaces debuted their shiny toilets, in the poor neighbourhoods of London or Manchester, people still shared communal latrines, many times on top of overflowing pits. Modernity, as always, arrived first for a few. But the leap had been made. From the medieval cry, "Water is coming," to the chain you pulled so the siphon would make the problem disappear. And although it disappeared from sight, it still remained to solve where all that actually went. Spoiler, rivers, seas, and of course, large-scale pollution. But for Victorian society, the important thing was that the bad smell was gone from home. Thus, the modern bathroom was born. White, shiny, private. And for the first time in centuries, humanity could sit on its throne with the peace of mind that water ran and carried the shame away. The modern and futuristic bathroom. The 20th century marked the consecration of the domestic bathroom. What had once been Victorian luxury now became an everyday necessity. Almost every house in modern cities included a bathroom with toilet, bidet, sink, and shower. The toilet ceased to be a privilege and became a standard of living. White ceramic became synonymous with hygiene and purity. Mid-century advertising showed toilets and bathtubs with the same pride as cars or appliances. The bathroom became a symbol of progress and modernity. Of course, in the cultural field, there were paradoxes. In the United States, for decades, cinema and television censored showing a toilet. You could see a murder in close-up, but never a character pulling the chain. And in the 1980s, a cheerful cleaner shaped like a little duck broke the taboo in advertising. We are surprised to see in India thousands of people bathing in the Ganges, between rituals and offerings, even though the waters are full of bacteria and waste. What few remember is that, in the West, we are not that far either. In the middle of the Olympics in Paris, swimming events in the Seine had to be suspended for the same reason. We are shocked by what is foreign, but when it happens in our own home, we hardly mention it. Modernity also brought its accidents. People trapped in toilets, firefighters breaking into bathrooms to dismantle a toilet, phones ending up at the bottom, ruining more than the day. And yes, one or two curious people who ended up with more than they expected by slipping in the least appropriate place. Scenes worthy of a contemporary sketch. Airplanes left us another mystery. Where does what they flush mid-flight actually go? We all travel, we all wonder, but no one wants to admit they thought about it. The 21st century, in contrast, took the bathroom into the realm of technology. Japan became the ultimate example. Smart toilets with heated seats, adjustable water jets, built-in music to mask noises, LED lights, automatic deodorizers, and even USB ports. The bathroom stopped being just an intimate space and became a futuristic comfort experience. Today we live with that duality. Smart bathrooms that look like spaceships in some countries and pit latrines that are still reality in rural and poor areas. The contrast remains brutal, but humanity has never invested so much in comfort, design and technology applied to such a simple and inevitable act. And everything indicates that, although inequalities remain, the human throne will continue to evolve. Who knows if one day, with artificial intelligence included. After this historical journey, we have to admit it. Humanity has broken its head trying to find solutions for something as simple as sitting down. We went through chamber pots hidden under the bed, through pit latrines where the aroma was part of the landscape, and through medieval toilets that hung from castle walls, straight to the moat. Then came earth toilets, with layers of dust to cover what was left. The Blair ventilated toilets designed to improve air circulation. The Arbalus tree latrines that ended in a pit where later a fruit tree was planted. And even pigsty toilets, yes, installations mounted over pig pens. Then the big leap, the Victorian toilet with siphon and water flush. From there to the portable chemical toilets of festivals and construction sites. That classic blue one we all hate, but no one replaces. And let us not forget the oddities. Toilets painted by hand as if they were fine tableware. Porcelain with flowers and gold. Standing toilets with only a hole. Japanese designs that look like they came out of a spaceship. and even futuristic prototypes made of glass with screens, LED lights, heating, buttons, and even USB. The conclusion is simple: from the bush to the futuristic commode, from the medieval moat to the toilet with artificial intelligence. The journey has been long, expensive, and sometimes ridiculous. But at the end of the day, we are all still looking for the same thing: a quiet corner, closing the door, and feeling, even if only for a little while, kings on our own throne. If something you saw made you reflect, tell me in the comments. I always enjoy reading you and talking with you there. And if you do not want to miss the next episodes, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell.